This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Now it's Rivian's turn to fight U.S. states banning direct sales. The EV startup filed a lawsuit yesterday against Ohio, arguing the ban is unconstitutional and limits competition by protecting franchise dealers from new competition. Rivian also says the law is unfair because it includes a special exemption for Tesla, which allows it to operate 3 stores in the state and still sell directly. Rivian does operate service centers in Ohio and helps customers register vehicles in the state. But buyers have to finalize their purchase in another state and then arrange for delivery. Yesterday, we reported that Tesla sales in China have fallen for 9 of the last 10 months, and it's a similar story in Europe. Last month, Tesla sales in France were down more than 26%. In Germany, they fell 55%. And in the UK, it was 59%. Meanwhile, sales of other BEVs in Europe were up 58% in July. Even more worrisome is that BYD is now selling as many pure EVs in Europe as Tesla does. The slump really started when Elon Musk began putting himself in the middle of European politics with loud support for far-right parties and politicians. That turned off so much of Tesla's customer base that sales took an immediate nosedive. And as the latest sales figures show, there are still no signs of it turning around. The Wildcat concept that debuted in 2022 has strongly influenced all of Buick's design since then. But could it be transitioning to a new look? It just revealed the Electra Orbit concept in China, an all-electric 2+2 sedan that's roughly 19.5 feet long. While it still has a shark nose front end, it's much lower, almost forming the bumper of the car. And the winged headlamps are gone too, replaced by 3 individual light bars on the left and right that kind of look like little hockey sticks turned on their side. Moving along the body, the roofline doesn't stop at the trunk, forming a hatchback rear end, which comes to a sharp point and extends particularly far from the back wheels. All of the doors on the Orbit concept scissor up just behind the wheels and feature lights that project beams into the sky. That leaves a pillarless opening leading into the interior, which has 4 individual seats for passengers. To me, this kind of seems like Buick's version of the Cadillac Celestiq. Mazda reported its latest financial earnings, and the numbers are dismal. It sold 3% fewer vehicles in the last quarter. Revenue fell 9%. It posted an operating loss of $312 million and a net loss of $285 million. U.S. tariffs alone took a $334 million bite out of its earnings. A stronger yen didn't help either. Mazda thinks it can turn a profit for the year, but its biggest market by far is the United States. And except for a plant that it shares with Toyota in Alabama that makes the CX-50, it imports everything else. And that means everything else is now subject to a 15% tariff. Toyota and Honda will report their earnings later this week and are expected to see profits drop by at least a third.
Developing today's vehicles. Issues can happen in an instant. When's the best time to solve a problem? The minute you know you have one. Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure, off-the-shelf solution empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Neovi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
The paint shop is the most expensive, the hardest to maintain, and produces more emissions than any other part of an automotive assembly plant. But previously we covered a story about BMW switching out natural gas for electricity in the drying section at one of its paint shops in Germany. Over the New Year break, it installed a new thermal oil system which uses electricity to heat the oil to several hundred degrees Celsius. Then the hot oil is passed through a heat exchanger, and that warms the air in the drying chamber. The oil-based system can also be heated by almost any energy source. So, BMW can more easily make changes in the future or use a different energy source depending on where the plant is located. In this German trial, BMW says the energy consumption of the drying equipment was reduced by about 40% and will cut the plant's carbon footprint by the equivalent of 480 tons of CO2 per year, which according to AI is roughly the same as 104 gasoline-powered vehicles. It's hard to believe that Hyundai doesn't currently sell any electric vehicles in China, but that's about to change. The automaker, along with its joint venture partner BAIC, is launching its first pure EV in China called the Alexio. However, Car News China reports it will be called the EO in China. It comes in both front and all-wheel drive. Front drive models have a 160 kilowatt motor, while all-wheel drive versions have a combined output of 233 kilowatts or 312 horsepower. The EO features an LFP battery from BYD with an estimated 700 kilometers or 435 miles of range based on the Chinese test cycle. The EO goes on sale next month in China and is estimated to cost around $20,000. The model is the first of at least 5 pure EVs that Hyundai plans to launch in China over the next 3 years. While Tesla's sales are falling in the US, it's still the top EV performer. But where do the others stack up? According to Electric, GM sold 19,000 EVs in July, more than double what it sold last year, and the Equinox EV made up about 45% of that total, selling roughly 8,500 units. That was the most EVs that any automaker other than Tesla has ever sold in the month of July in the US. It was also over 2,000 units more than the Honda Prologue and about 3,000 more than the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Ford Mustang Mach-E. Since GM only reports on a quarterly basis, Electric estimates Chevy has sold about 36,000 Equinox EVs in the US so far this year, which would put it about 9,000 units ahead of the Mach-E. Last week, Jaguar Land Rover CEO Adrian Mardell retired after holding the position for 3 years and spending more than 3 decades at the company. So now the automaker has named P.B. Balaji as his replacement. Balaji has been the chief financial officer at Tata Motors since 2017, and Tata, as you know, owns Jaguar Land Rover. Balaji will officially take over as CEO of JLR in November. They call them REEVs or EREVs, range extended EVs or extended range EVs. But either way, they're the same thing, and they happen to be the fastest growing segment in China. A good example is the latest models from IM Motor, the LS6 sedan and LS9 SUV. They offer 1,500 kilometers of total range and 450 kilometers of pure battery range. That's on the CLTC test cycle, China's rather generous mileage test. We think an equivalent EPA rating would be 605 miles of total range and 181 miles of battery range, which are still really good numbers for an EREV. But that's accomplished with a rather large 66 kilowatt hour battery pack. The 800-volt system can add 310 kilometers of range in 15 minutes of charging using a fast charger at 268 kilowatts. IM Motor uses a 1.5-liter IC engine as the range extender and uses noise cancellation to keep the cabin under 36 decibels when it's running. The LS6 sedan starts at around $32,000. No word yet on the price of the LS9 SUV, which will be the flagship of the brand. We also think this is worth reporting on because IM Motor is owned by SAIC, And the new Audi brand that Audi is launching in China will leverage IM Motors' EV platform. So it's possible Audi will have the same EREV tech in China. But that's a wrap for this show. Thanks for tuning in.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. CSP, the Composites Solution Partner. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering, boost your game. And thanks to the following YouTube and Patreon members.
At CSP, we work with OEM engineers across the country on their journeys to lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly vehicles. Learn more at thecsp.com.
Making a life full of memories, one road trip at a time. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Weather Peak tires with a 70,000-mile limited warranty.